In the shadows of night, a woman walks silently among sheaves of barley. Her steps are deliberate, her mission risky. What is about to happen will forever change the course of human history, though no one that night could imagine such magnitude. 9 words. Just 9 words would be enough to alter the destiny, not only of a desperate widow, but of an entire lineage that would one day produce Israel's greatest king and eventually the promised Messiah. How could a foreigner, a Moabite woman rejected by many, find the courage to utter such a bold request? What led her to risk her dignity, her reputation, and possibly her very life on that dark night in the fields of Bethlehem? Ruth's story isn't just about love or redemption. It's about a brilliant strategy, interwoven with a deep understanding of ancient laws and nearly forgotten traditions. It's about a woman who, in her extreme vulnerability, demonstrated extraordinary wisdom. Have you ever wondered how someone can completely transform their life with just a few words? This story offers a perspective on courage and determination that few know. What did those 9 mysterious words mean? Why were they spoken in that precise location? And how would a man of position and wealth respond to a seemingly impossible request made by a woman society deemed unworthy? The sun beat down mercilessly on the arid lands of Moab. This region, located east of the Dead Sea, was viewed with suspicion and disdain by the Israelites. Imagine a place so geographically close, yet so culturally distant, like 2 warring nations in today's world. The Moabites descended from Lot, Abraham's nephew, through an incestuous relationship with his own daughter. This origin marked the Moabites with a stain that the Israelites never forgot. In Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, a family faced impossible choices. Famine ravaged the region like a relentless predator. Imagine having no food for dinner, not just today, but with no prospect of getting any tomorrow, or next week, or next month. Elimelech and his wife Naomi made a desperate decision to leave the promised land and seek refuge in Moab, the land of Israel's historical enemies. They took their 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion, young men with their whole lives ahead of them. In Moab, the family found food, but also new complications. The sons married Moabite women, Orpah and Ruth, a decision many Israelites would consider unthinkable, like marrying someone from a radically opposing religion or culture in today's world. Tragedy wasn't long in coming. First, Elimelech died, leaving Naomi a widow in a foreign land. Years later, her 2 sons also died, one after another, like candles extinguished by a cruel wind. 3 widows remained, Naomi, now aged, and her 2 Moabite daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth. The situation was desperate. Being a widow in that society meant extreme vulnerability, like being alone in a dangerous city with no money, no phone, no place to sleep. Naomi, with no more hope in Moab, decided to return to Bethlehem. She encouraged her daughters-in-law to remain in their homeland, where they could rebuild their lives, perhaps find new husbands among their own people. Orpah, after many tears, accepted Naomi's advice and said goodbye. But Ruth refused to abandon her mother-in-law. Ruth's words to Naomi reveal extraordinary loyalty. "Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God." It was like renouncing her own identity, nationality, and family to follow someone out of pure loyalty. Ruth chose to accompany Naomi to a land where she would be considered an unwanted foreigner, where doors would be closed to her, where she would be treated with suspicion and disdain. When the 2 women arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred. Naomi, whose name meant pleasant, asked to be called Mara, meaning bitter. Life had been hard on her. The 2 widows faced a bleak future, without protection, without resources, dependent on the charity of others to survive. The heat was relentless that morning when Ruth went out to the fields around Bethlehem. Israelite law allowed the poor and foreigners to gather the leftovers from the harvest, a practice called gleaning. It was arduous and humiliating work, like rummaging through dumpsters for something useful in today's world. On her knees under the scorching sun, Ruth followed the harvesters, collecting every grain left behind. Her fingers quickly developed calluses, her back ached constantly, but she persisted. Each grain meant one more moment of survival for her and Naomi. By chance, or perhaps by a greater design, Ruth found herself gleaning in the field of Boaz, a wealthy and respected man in Bethlehem. Boaz wasn't just any landowner. He was a relative of Elimelech, Naomi's late husband. When he arrived at the field that morning, he immediately noticed the foreigner. Something about her caught his attention, perhaps her unusual dedication, perhaps the dignity with which she performed such humbling work. "Whose young woman is this?" Boaz asked the foreman in charge of the harvesters. The answer was clear and direct. She is the Moabite who came back with Naomi from the land of Moab. Her reputation had preceded her. Everyone in Bethlehem knew about the Moabite woman who had abandoned her land and her people to accompany her mother-in-law. Boaz approached Ruth. His gesture was surprising and unexpected. "Listen, my daughter," he said kindly. "Don't go to glean in another field. Stay here with my servant girls." It was an unusual offer of protection. Boaz instructed his young workers not to harass Ruth, a real danger for a vulnerable foreign woman. He ordered them to deliberately drop extra grain for her to collect. Ruth was astonished by such kindness. She bowed with her face to the ground, a gesture of extreme humility and gratitude. "Why have I found favor in your eyes?" she asked. "Why do you care about me since I am a foreigner?" Boaz's response revealed that he knew her story well. "I've been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you left your father and mother and your homeland, and came to live with a people you did not know." Her actions had created a reputation that preceded her. During the weeks of harvest, Ruth continued gleaning in Boaz's fields. He ensured her protection and privileged her work, allowing her to collect much more than would be normal for someone in her position. Each night, Ruth returned to Naomi with an impressive amount of grain. The older woman began to perceive something significant in this unusual generosity. One day after observing the pattern, Naomi asked where Ruth had worked. Upon hearing Boaz's name, her eyes lit up with new hope. "Blessed be he by the Lord, who has not stopped showing kindness to the living and the dead," exclaimed Naomi. "That man is our close relative, one of our family redeemers." At that moment, a strategy began forming in Naomi's experienced mind. She knew an ancient Israelite law called Levirate marriage, which stipulated that when a man died without leaving children, his closest brother should marry the widow to produce offspring in the name of the deceased. Additionally, there was the law of redemption, where a close relative had the responsibility to buy back lost family properties and restore the family name. Boaz qualified as a goal, a redeemer or rescuer for Elimelech's family. Naomi saw an opportunity not just for immediate survival, but for the complete restoration of their future. The plan Naomi devised was bold and risky, so risky that if it failed, it could completely destroy Ruth's reputation and end any chance of future security. It was like betting all your chips on a single roll of the dice. "My daughter," Naomi said to Ruth, "should I not seek rest for you, that you may be well provided for?" The proposal that followed would leave any young widow apprehensive. Naomi instructed Ruth to prepare meticulously, to bathe, apply perfume, put on her best clothes, not as a field worker, but as a woman ready for a significant encounter. The harvest was complete. It was tradition for the owners to spend the night at the threshing floor, protecting the newly threshed grain from thieves. Naomi knew Boaz would be at the threshing floor that night. "Watch where he lies down," she instructed. "Then go, uncover his feet and lie down there. He will tell you what to do." The request was scandalous, practically unthinkable. Ruth would be placing herself in an extremely vulnerable and compromising position. It was like entering alone at night the bedroom of a powerful man, an action that could be interpreted in the worst possible ways. "I will do everything you have told me," Ruth responded, demonstrating extraordinary trust in her mother-in-law's judgment and even more extraordinary courage. Night came. After the harvest celebration, with abundant food and drink, Boaz lay down beside the pile of grain, satisfied with the results of his work. The threshing floor was dark and silent when Ruth approached quietly. With her heart beating almost audibly in her chest, she followed Naomi's instructions. She found Boaz in deep sleep. Gently, she uncovered his feet and lay down there. In the middle of the night, Boaz woke up startled. Something or someone was at his feet. Alarmed, he turned. "Who are you?" he asked, trying to see in the darkness. Ruth's response would come in just 9 words. 9 carefully chosen words that would communicate an impossible request, invoking ancient laws and sacred traditions. 9 words that would change everything. "I am Ruth, your servant. Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a family redeemer." 9 words, just 9 simple words, but loaded with meaning and profound implications. What was Ruth really saying with these seemingly enigmatic words? To fully understand the genius of Ruth's approach, we need to penetrate the layers of cultural and legal meaning embedded in this phrase. It wasn't just a romantic request or an indecorous suggestion. It was a sophisticated legal invocation disguised in symbolic language. The expression "spread the corner of your garment over me" wasn't a common request. In ancient Hebrew culture, when a man spread the edge of his garment over a woman, he was symbolically declaring his intention of marriage. offering his legal protection and assuming responsibility for her. This gesture was recognized as a formal marriage proposal, but Ruth went further. By adding, "Since you are a family redeemer," she was explicitly invoking the Levirate law and the institution of the Goel, the kinsman redeemer. She was reminding Boaz not just of a romantic possibility, but of a legal and moral obligation. As a relative of her deceased husband, Boaz had the right, some would argue the duty, to redeem Ruth from her state of widowhood and vulnerability. The brilliance of Ruth's approach lies in how she interwove multiple traditions into a single phrase. It wasn't just a personal request, but a claim grounded in law. It wasn't just an emotional plea, but a reminder of family responsibility. Boaz's reaction reveals how impressed he was by Ruth's wisdom. "May you be blessed by the Lord, my daughter," he exclaimed. "This last instance of your loyalty is better than the first, because you have not gone after young men, whether rich or poor." What Boaz recognized in these words was extraordinary. The first loyalty referred to Ruth's decision to remain with Naomi, but this second loyalty, seeking to fulfill her duty to her deceased husband's family through the laws of Levirate marriage, demonstrated an even deeper commitment. Ruth wasn't simply looking for a new husband who could support her. She was seeking to honor the name of her late husband and ensure the continuity of the family lineage. What few understand about this story is that Ruth was proposing something that could potentially cost Boaz financially. As a redeemer, Boaz would have to buy the lands that belonged to Elimelech, not for himself, but to maintain them in the family name. Any child he had with Ruth would legally be considered a descendant of Mahlon, Ruth's deceased husband, and would inherit those properties. Boaz would be investing his resources in an inheritance that would not bear his name. Even more surprising is the revelation Boaz makes to Ruth. "It is true that I am a redeemer. However, there is a redeemer more closely related than I." This information could have collapsed the entire carefully crafted plan. There was a relative with priority right to redeem Ruth. Instead of taking advantage of this convenient way out, Boaz promises immediate action. "If he wants to exercise his right of redemption, let him do so. If not, I will." The determination in his words demonstrates that something beyond duty was driving his actions. A frequently overlooked detail in this story is Boaz's age. Although the Bible doesn't specify, there are indications that he was significantly older than Ruth. When he calls her "my daughter" and praises her decision not to go after young men, it suggests a considerable age difference. Some scholars believe Boaz could have been a middle-aged or older man, possibly even of Naomi's generation. This adds another layer to the story. For Boaz, Ruth's approach represented not just a legal obligation, but possibly a last opportunity for marriage and fatherhood. His enthusiastic response may have been motivated not only by duty, but by a personal desire for family that he may have abandoned due to age. Before Ruth left the threshing floor, Boaz gave her 6 measures of barley to take to Naomi, a symbol of his serious intention and a portent of future abundance. It was also a coded message for Naomi, 6 measures, possibly symbolizing the 6 steps Boaz would take to complete the redemption the next day. "How did it go, my daughter?" asked Naomi when Ruth returned at dawn. Ruth's detailed narration, including the gift of barley, brought a smile to the experienced mother-in-law's face. "Wait, my daughter, until you see how the matter turns out, for the man will not rest until he has settled it today." The next morning, as promised, Boaz went to the city gate, the place where legal transactions were conducted, equivalent to a modern courthouse. There, he found the closer relative and confronted him with the situation strategically. First, he mentioned only Elimelech's land that Naomi was selling. The relative readily agreed to redeem it. After all, it was a good investment. Then Boaz revealed the complete condition. "On the day you buy the field from Naomi, you are also acquiring Ruth the Moabite, the dead man's widow, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property." This was the complicated part. Any child born to Ruth would inherit the property, not the redeemer. To discover more fascinating stories like this, simply subscribe to the channel. Stories where small details reveal profound meanings, where seemingly ordinary characters demonstrate extraordinary wisdom, and where each word can carry layers of meaning that transform our understanding of sacred texts. The closer relative backed away. "I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I impair my own inheritance," he declared, removing his sandal, the legal gesture that symbolized the transfer of the right of redemption. The way was open for Boaz. Before the witnesses gathered at the city gate, Boaz proclaimed, "You are witnesses this day that I have bought from the hand of Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech, and all that belonged to Kilion and to Mahlon, Also Ruth the Moabite, the widow of Mahlon, I have acquired to be my wife, to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance. Those 9 words spoken in the darkness of the threshing floor now resulted in a public declaration. The impossible request became reality. A Moabite foreigner, widowed and destitute, was transformed into the wife of one of Bethlehem's most respected men. The marriage took place, and soon Ruth conceived a son, Obed. The women of Bethlehem celebrated with Naomi, "Blessed be the Lord who has not left you this day without a redeemer. May his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age. For your daughter-in-law who loves you, who is more to you than 7 sons, has given birth to him." The baby in Naomi's arms represented not just family continuity, but complete restoration. From bitter and desolate widow, she became a joyful grandmother. The circle of tragedy was completed with renewed hope. What few realize is the historical magnitude of that birth. The book of Ruth ends with a genealogy. Obed became the father of Jesse, and Jesse the father of David. Yes, this baby would be the grandfather of the greatest king Israel would ever know. From David's lineage would come, centuries later, the promised Messiah. Ruth's story speaks deeply to our own lives. How many times do we face seemingly impossible situations? How many times do we feel that our circumstances define us and limit our future? Ruth demonstrates how courage, combined with wisdom and integrity, can transform the most desperate circumstances. The concept of a redeemer, someone who intervenes to restore what has been lost, resonates with universal human experiences. We all know the feeling of loss, of needing rescue. We all long for someone to spread their garment of protection over us. In many spiritual traditions, this is precisely the function of the divine in human life, to rescue, restore, redeem. The story also challenges our perceptions about identity and belonging. Ruth, the foreigner, the Moabite, ended up being incorporated not just into the Israelite community, but into the most important lineage in biblical history. The barriers that humans build, nationality, ethnicity, family history, can be transcended by choices of loyalty and love. Ruth's 9 words on the threshing floor didn't just change her personal life, they initiated a chain of events that would affect the history of humanity. From a crisis of famine and death, from the extreme vulnerability of 2 destitute widows, emerged a royal lineage, a rejected foreigner, a helpless widow, a woman without a voice in society. This is whom God chose to be the great-grandmother of King David and an ancestor of the Messiah. Her words echo through the centuries, reminding us that no circumstance is too desperate, no barrier is insurmountable, no future is unchangeable. 9 words spoken in darkness illuminated the path to a new life. 9 words that remind us that sometimes, at the most unlikely moment, with the simplest words, we can transform not only our destiny, but the destiny of future generations. I am Ruth, your servant. Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a family redeemer.